Welcome, everyone, to the Pockets of Knowledge podcast. I'm your host, Desiree Stanley, and with me today is my guest, Tabatha Jones. How are you today, Tabatha?
I'm good, Desiree. Thanks so much for asking. I hope you're well also.
I am, thank you. And I am excited about our conversation today. Tabatha, you are the owner and founder of Tabatha Jones Consulting. And really specifically, you are working with founders and executive growth coach, career coaching. And you're going to dive into that with us and explain exactly what all of that means. But you're working specifically with women who are in that executive role and coaching them to help them continue to grow in their careers.
Absolutely. I always joke and say I work mostly with women and a few lucky men, but generally, yes, female leaders from manager, director, executive level roles, mostly in corporate and in the nonprofit space, really helping them get better at their job so that they're positioned for great career advancement, helping them become more impactful and influential leaders. And in many cases, helping them get better jobs or make transitions into a new career. So, definitely, there's a lot of fun and a lot of strategy in our coaching program.
Awesome. And so tell us how this journey began for you. Like, how did this path open up for you? What was the key things that occurred that put you on this path?
So, it's a little different story than many coaches have. I actually spent a really long time in the corporate world, climbing the ladder myself for more than 20 years in the leadership space. And an interesting part of my story is I stayed early on in my leadership role. I was a project manager. I stayed in that same role for 10 years, taking on more and more responsibility, getting my degree, doing all the things I thought it was going to take to be perfect, I'll put in quotes, and that my boss would finally promote me. So I was just hoping, wishing, praying someone was going to notice and be like, hey, here's your new promotion and all the money that comes with it. And really interesting, believe it or not, that didn't happen. What happened instead is we went through a bit of a reorg within our region in California, and all of the positions were being reposted. We all had to reapply for jobs or risk layoff. And I started looking at the job postings and I went, well, I'm already doing more than the position ahead of me. What am I doing here right now? So I applied for the job. It was a billing systems manager role. So very technical back office coding kind of stuff. And with that role, I would take on not only leadership of the project team, but the three teams that I was leading at the time already. And then I was literally adding one more team that I already worked really closely with. I interviewed, I was offered the job, and I was offered an amazing 4% pay increase.
Oh
And that
my
was the
God.
day I said, no, thank you. I was like, what am I doing here? I declined the job. I said, thank you, but no, thank you. And I walked out, leaving the leader at the time in a little bit of a shocked space. The look on his face was a little bit clear. And then within about 15 minutes, I was called into the CFO's office and she asked me what was going on. She said, we expected you would take this position. We don't see anyone else leading this team. You've been very successful. The team respects you. Business partners respect you, and so on. And she said, what will it take to make this offer more palatable? Having never negotiated in my life for anything and being a woman, right? We hold back on that stuff. I sat there and I said, I would expect to be offered a senior manager position, a senior manager title, and a 15% pay increase. And she said, I assume you mean on top of the 4% we've already offered. And I said, yes, absolutely. And that's what happened. So that came through. I was like, wow, that's the day I was like, I'm not playing small anymore. I'm not sitting in a role for 10 years ever again. And from that point forward, I earned four promotions over the next 10 years. The very next promotion opportunity came just 10 months later. And we were reorganizing then from a regional department into a division department. So expanding to 7 states of responsibility. And again, all positions we're going to post, starting with the director positions. And I said, you know what? I'm going to apply. I've been sitting there for 10 years. I'm applying. I didn't get an interview. And so I reached out to the hiring manager and just said, hey, what's going on? And she was really open. And she said, we have 7 directors. We're trying to put them into positions as much as possible where their skill sets fit. And then from there, we'll be interviewing other people who already have director titles. But don't worry, we have a senior manager role for you on our team. And I said, I'd like to be a little candid with you, if that's okay. And she said, okay. And I said, you may not know this, but I had the title of project manager for 10 years. And during that time, here's what I was really doing. And I shared success. I shared a lot of stats and metrics. I shared what I had been doing successfully for the past 10 months and found myself on a flight to Denver 2 days later, where I interviewed with a panel of 7 vice presidents. And that was the next time I learned if you don't ask, the answer is always no. Got through that interview and had a job offer in hand less than a week later. From there, the next time I took on more responsibility, I was promoted very shortly thereafter. And then my final promotion came in 2019. We went through yet another reorg. The telecom industry is really famous for that. And we were going from a division team of 7 states to a corporate team of 40 some odd states. And the expectation was we would come over with our title as is. And I was a senior director at the time. And I thought, that's really interesting. I started looking at the org chart and who the people were and who my peers would be. And I said, why would I come over as a senior director, but these other individuals are executive directors and vice presidents? So I reached out to the head of the department and I said, hey, just want to have a quick chat. And I did. I presented my case. I explained why I felt that I deserved a promotion to executive director and additional pay compensation because of the additional scope I was taking on, which was then approved and then approved for my peers who also would have been coming across at that lateral title. That's the long way around telling you how I got here. So now what I do is I try to save women that time, right? Don't spend 10 years sitting in a role, hoping, wishing, and praying. Let's take action and get more powerfully positioned to climb the ladder and achieve those career goals. What I found is I just loved teaching my employees how to do that, my peers, friends, family. I thought, I'm going to do this as a business one day. And I was sitting in a seminar in 2018, and this little voice in the back of my head kept saying, you should be up there. Why aren't you teaching this? Do you know this? Why are you sitting here? What are you doing in the audience? And, I kept going, I'm not perfect yet. These ladies have master's degrees. They have blah, blah, blah. And the other voice is like, you have more than 30 years in corporate. You've been a leader for 20 years. What are you waiting for? And it happened after the pandemic settled a little, after our reorg settled a little, I gave my notice and I left and just started a whole new career at the age of 50 and love it.
Oh my gosh, Tabatha, thank you so much for sharing that journey with us. And I just have to say, bravo. It's tremendous, though, that you stood up and you said, look at these things I've done. And I absolutely deserve this title, this pay compensation, all of that. Good on you for doing that. So many of us don't have that confidence or don't think we deserve it or are unsure we could even speak up and say that. And yes, you did spend 10 years in one role, but then something like woke up in you and you said, no, not doing this again. So why don't you talk with us about maybe how do we begin to overcome some of these thoughts that are limiting what we can accomplish because we just don't think we're good enough or don't have enough experience, we don't have the master's degree or whatever. So what are your thoughts on that?
There's just so many thoughts on that. So as women, we get in our heads a lot and we have these things that are obstacles or barriers in our minds. And so often their perception or perspective, they're not real, right? So where a man will go and apply for a job or a promotion, if he meets 60% of the qualifications, a woman's, oh, no, hold the phone. I got to get one more certificate. I got to get one more degree. I've got to be 100%. It sets us behind in our careers. And there's a couple of really great things that we can do. One is recognizing the fact that it is our career journey and it is our responsibility to drive it. It's not anyone else's. It is our responsibility to make sure that we are very clear on our career goals and the value that we bring to a company and to the individuals around us so that we can speak about it when we're asked. I find that a lot of the women I work with, especially in the case where there was a layoff, for example, and it wasn't expected, and now we're on a job search, really struggle to articulate their value, even with me in a practice session.
Mm.
So it's so important to just keep track of those things. I was actually joking with somebody last week that we have these things that we just do as women. We're fixers, we're doers, we're list checker offers, right? We don't look for recognition, we just do it and go. But if we don't stop and take a look at, wow, what was really the impact of getting that done? We're really doing ourselves a disservice. And we're doing a disservice to the women around us because we're not setting that example.
Mm.
And keeping track of those accomplishments is so important. It just, not just for resume updates, but for those conversations where you're building your visibility and building your brand and for your confidence. When you look back and look at all the things you've accomplished in the last 6 months or year or 5 years, it's a pretty amazing story when you can sit down and just read it. So that's one way to keep track.
Yeah, that's a great point because we absolutely just check those things off, get the work done, whatever it is, we pick up the slack, we help get things handled and we move on. Or maybe we've spearheaded a project and it's just like it needed to be done and we did it, but we're not saying this is what I've done and look at what happened because of that. So what a great reminder to take the time to keep a record of that because there could be a point when you can say, here's the things I've done, and this is what's happened because of that. And I do deserve a raise or I do deserve a promotion. So, yeah, great advice there. And so, there was something in there that you said earlier about you were doing the work of the next boss up almost. And, but you didn't have the title or the compensation that went with that. And so, this kind of makes me think like, how do we sort of prepare or begin to like so that we're effectively showing like I'm doing this work already. I should be compensated for it.
Absolutely. And that's a little bit of a balance, right? A little bit of a balancing act, figuring out where that fine line is. Because the reality is, if you want a promotion, you do need to start showing up as next level ready, which means you need to start elevating now, which means you need to be having some really important and courageous conversations. You need to be taking on a little bit of scope and potentially showing that you're capable of delegating other things so that you're focused on the most important things. And it's just that really interesting balancing act where in my case, I didn't really think about that. What I thought about was if I just keep taking on more, if I just keep taking on more. And my boss was awesome. She knew I got bored quickly. So it worked out great for her. But flip side of that, and big lesson learned, right? Had I maybe taken on a little bit and then had a conversation with, I've been thinking, here are the things I've succeeded at. Here's what I'm doing above and beyond my job. What is the next step to put me in for a promotion? Or where is my next promotion opportunity? Having that conversation sooner would have been much more beneficial.
Yeah, and that kind of goes back to where we think if I just do the work, they're going to see I'm doing the work and they're going to pat me on the back or give me a reward or whatever. And it's no, it's really not going to happen like that. Unfortunately, in corporate America, it's no, you're not going to just, they're not going to just reward you, give you a gold star or whatever, because they see you're doing all this work. They're just going to expect more.
Mhm.
So
That's
unless you,
exactly.
yeah, unless you take the initiative to ask, you're just going to get more work piled on you, right?
Exactly. It works. And the other thing I find is we always, I did this and a lot of women do it, really expect that our boss is putting us out there as ready for that next promotion based on the work we're doing that others may not be aware of if we're not managing our own visibility.
Mhm.
And if you're making your boss shine like a diamond, they don't necessarily want to lose you. Oh, she leaves. What am I going to do? I'm going to have to hire 3 people to replace her, and I can't do that. So it's not always, you can't always leave it up to your leader to be the one to bring your name up or to bring awareness to others about what you're doing. So there's definitely some strategy in that space also.
Yeah. Okay. So then let's talk about maybe what are some tips or strategies for beginning to set the tone or pave the path.
Yeah. A couple of things. So, one, I would say be very clear on your goals. Where do you want to go? We'll work hard all the time without any idea of where we plan to land. and give yourself a couple of options. So for me, I knew I wanted to become a director of the back office technical team, the coders. That was my kind of sweet spot. What other teams were similar where my leadership skills would translate so that I have a couple of options, right? So having those couple of options available just really expands your opportunities. The other is calendar management, because you need to carve out time for yourself to do those important leadership behaviors or leadership activities, but being able to set time on your calendar. I can't tell you how many times I'll speak with a woman and she's wanting a promotion, she's frustrated. And when I say, when are you making time for this on your calendar? Her confidence may be low. And where's the time on your calendar for you? Where do you prepare for meetings? Where are you working on your visibility? Where are you building your brand? There's no room. The calendar is blocked from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. and there is no break in between. As a leader, you're expected to lead, which means delegating, which means carving out time for yourself so that you're focused and feeling confident and prepared for important activities. And sometimes it means consolidating meetings, eliminating them completely because you don't belong there. But to me, everything starts with the calendar. I've had a lot of ladies say, "Oh, I'm so great at time management." And I'll say, "What does that mean?" I get everything done every day and everything's done on time. And I'm like, "Oh, okay. When do you prepare for those big meetings that are really important when you're getting in front of the C-suite?" I do that when I'm sitting in this other meeting and that's not helping your brand. We've got to rethink some things. So I harp on calendar management a little bit just because it really is the main piece once you get that under control. And the other thing is visibility. I send all of my clients on a visibility quest, I call it, so that they're getting out and getting their name known. There is nothing worse than applying for a job that you feel that you're the best candidate for. It's a great promotion opportunity. And then getting the feedback that you didn't get the interview because no one really knows who you are. Or the feedback I heard is you're the person who presents dashboards and meetings. They've never seen you lead, so they don't believe you're ready for this job. It's a soul crusher. So making time, get out and talk to the leaders that hire for the roles you want. Get out and speak with senior leaders in your company. Conduct some really great informational interviews, which helps you learn about the person and their expectations. But also, you can be a little bit selfish and share a really great elevator pitch that talks about your goals and your strengths and accomplishments so they get to know you. And then keep that relationship alive. It's not a one and done. It's making sure that the people who need to know you do. And that's definitely a calendar strategy too.
Yeah, good stuff. Thank you so much for sharing that with us. And this idea of visibility and not just being like in the background, but stepping out into that spotlight a little bit so that you're doing things that people are seeing and then recognize that you are capable of doing as frequently as you can, it sounds like, so that you become memorable. And like you said, you can be seen in that leadership position and are not forgotten. So that's great advice. Something that you also talk a lot about is like networking strategies. And so that goes along with this visibility kind of perspective, right? So talk with us a little bit about these networking strategies and how does that continue to help in your visibility?
That's a great question. So, networking is important, and it doesn't matter what you're doing in life. If you're building a business, if you're in a business, if you just, I don't know, want to have coffee with somebody that's interesting, right? Networking is where it's at. And what I find really interesting is women, we get so bogged down in doing the work. It's comfortable. We're doing what we're comfortable with, not always putting ourselves out in front of people. But I've attended a few events recently, and one of them specifically was put on by a women's group, and it was attended by 85% men. Yeah, shocker, right? And I get it. It's golf. We're not all into it. I had never played golf before that day in my life, but I went. And I found it interesting as I was reaching out to a couple of women who I'd expected to see. Oh, someone threw a meeting on my calendar. Oh, this came up. Oh, that came up. It was all work related. And I was thinking, that's really interesting. I wonder if any of the men had that same thing happen, but were actually assertive in saying, "I'm sorry, I'm not available at that time. Can you find another time?" And I find that really interesting. So Often we don't prioritize that networking as effectively as we should. Now, in person events are my favorite. The energy is always great. I'm an extreme extrovert, so I love peopling. For my introverted friends, I always say grab a wing woman, get someone that is a talker to help bring you into the conversation, someone that understands that you may have a little bit more of a quieter, gentle nature, and make sure you have a really strong elevator pitch. So you're not uncomfortable speaking about yourself. You've practiced it, you're confident, and you're feeling really good about it. Then there's also the online networking, which became super popular in 2020. It is definitely a great place to connect with people and learn about different industries. I've connected with a few people at companies that I hadn't quite dipped my toe in yet to learn more about what was going on and what their challenges were. It's just a really great way to break into a new industry, learn about different jobs, or meet people that you wouldn't normally bump into because they're not in your community, they're across the country. But have a really good plan. Think about, what is your intention? What do you want to learn from this person? Or what support do you want to ask them for? And it's important to go in with a give and take kind of mentality, right? We're not all here for you. It's not all about you need a job. It is, let's learn about each other. Let's figure out how we can support each other. Maybe you know someone that's hiring and I'm looking for a job. And maybe I know someone who would be a good connection for you because you're thinking of moving into a different industry. There's so many great ways to build relationships that way. Yeah. And I'd say that, yeah, prioritizing the networking. When your office has events, ERGs, the employee resource groups, they have events. As a leader, don't schedule meetings over those events and join them with your team. It's a great way to get to know other people while you're learning about someone who may not be exactly like you. So there's just so many fun ways to get out there and meet other cool humans.
Yeah, I love that. And what you shared in there about they didn't attend an event because their calendar got booked with something else. And you just, oh, I better do it. I better hold this meeting. I better do this thing, whatever it is, because you can't let anybody down or disappoint anybody, which I think a lot of women feel like. I know I've experienced whereas I better have this meeting or I better do this thing because I have to, I should, whatever. And the men didn't. They said, let's reschedule, let's find another time. And so this is such a great point. Like, how can we begin to think a little bit differently about doing something that's maybe uncomfortable, but could set us forward, like on a new path in a new direction, improve us in a way that's beneficial for our future, right? And going to these events, it sounds like can open doors, can open who you're meeting and the things that you're learning. And it's a growth opportunity.
Exactly. I've heard through my whole career, most deals are made on the golf course. Of course they are because all the men are out there. And we're sitting in, getting all the work done, holding the fort down, making sure everybody that wants to have a conversation does. That you don't have to love golf. I'm using golf as an example because that was the women's event. You don't have to love golf to show up and sit in the cart and hang out. That was the best thing. I hit a couple balls. They probably didn't go anywhere near the right direction. Though I do joke, I won a trophy. It's probably because there weren't too many women there competing with me. The reality is, it's okay to ask, is this a priority for today? Is this something that we could do tomorrow instead? I already have that time slot booked. We will make accommodations and bend over backwards all the time to fit something in, but not everything's a fire drill. And sometimes demonstrating leadership is asking for a compromise or delegating. So, nope, you know what? I'm not available at that day and time. I have another event on my calendar, but I'd be more than happy to send Katie in my place if you're okay with that. I mean, there's so many options and ways around it.
Yeah, good stuff. Thank you for pointing that out because it's true. There's workarounds, there's different choices that we could make in how we handle things. And so I love that. And the point about the golf, no, it maybe isn't for everybody in terms of playing, but there's nothing that says that you can't go and hang out in the cart, like you said. What a fun day it could be if you take that chance and that opportunity. So I love that. And the point that you made earlier about bringing a wing woman with you to an event,
Oh,
if you are maybe uncomfortable going to something by yourself is such a great point. I love that. And there's something that speaks to me that is actually a golf event for women, a networking golf event for women. And I'm going, I don't know if I should go to that. I don't know anybody that's there. I'm not walking into a room of people I don't even know. I don't think I'm going to do that. And it's hello. How much better can this be for you to go to? It's women.
Yeah.
And yes, it's golf. And I'm trying to get into it. I'm playing with my husband. I'm trying to get better. This has got you written all over it. But it's the point about going in by yourself where you're just like, I don't know if I want to do that. So remembering that, bring someone with you. There's no reason why you can't do that. So great advice. And I'm going to take that to heart for myself.
Thank you. And remember with golf, you've got the golf cart. You get a really cute outfit to wear while you're out there. So clothes shopping. And there's usually a really good lunch and some great adult beverages. So honestly, it's a win, whether you like to play golf or not.
True, true, for sure. So let's talk a little bit about, because I think some of this is self-confidence and trying to build that self-confidence. And I think it does come from doing things that are a little uncomfortable. But what are maybe some suggestions that you have that we can begin to test out, to implement, to try to build some of our self-confidence?
My favorite self confidence builder is an exercise I have all of my clients do, which is making a list of 50 things that they're most proud of. So
Mhm.
you can just take a simple spreadsheet and a notebook. You can write, you can whatever you like, 50 things. The interesting thing is, most women come back after a week of having this assignment and they've got maybe 10 to 15. I'd say my high achievers get to 20 things they're most proud of. And almost all of them, believe it or not, are tied to their jobs. So we break that down because we're so much more than our jobs. And that is where a lot of our confidence comes from. Whether you've raised a child, or you're a mentor to nieces and nephews, or you've rescued a dog, or you do something great in your community. I volunteer with a local food pantry, making sure people in the community get food. That's a big deal to me. So think about all of the things that you're really proud of that you do that makes a difference and write them down. And then add to that list. Challenge yourself every single month to add 3 to 5 new things to that list. I've had a couple of clients that have had some really tough confidence, kind of imposter syndrome concerns. And so what we'll do is have them make the list, but then go back and read it into their voice recorder and then play it back in their own voice. Hearing that in your own voice, you get to 10 or 15 when you're having a bad day. You're like, oh, yeah, just, you know what? I'm good. I got this. And keep going. We do so many things that we should be proud of. And that's a huge confidence builder. You also mentioned trying something new. That for me, I love trying new things. I haven't done anything too crazy lately, but pick out a new sport or try a new activity. Pickleball actually is on my list. I have my paddle and my balls, and we're going to go try pickleball. But just something new. Yeah, I'm always learning. I'm always growing. I'm super smart and valuable, and I can learn new things. It's a pick me up, right? It reminds you that you are capable of anything you set your mind to. Other than that, I would say journaling is also another great strategy. Sometimes we keep telling ourselves something that's not really true. Oh, I made this one mistake. Everyone thinks I suck. We'll just go broad, right? Let's sit down and write about that. Does everyone think I suck? Is that true? No, not really. Probably this one person is still annoyed, but what did I do after I made this mistake? I maybe admitted it to my team, and then I resolved it and told my team how I resolved it and promised to do better. And now I'm more aware and I'm able to move faster because I'll never make that mistake again. Just sitting down with your journal in a really quiet space and getting whatever's in your head out can really have an impact. And gratitude always, right? 3 things you're grateful for every single day. It could be the first breath you took in the morning. It could be the beautiful weather. It could be the people in your life. It can be anything. But it just reminds you again that it's so much bigger than whatever is going on in your nugget. So it's a couple strategies I use.
Yeah, that's excellent, Tabitha. Thank you for sharing those. And again, going back to writing down these things, just like with your job, you're writing down these accomplishments in your personal life, writing down these things that you've accomplished that you're proud of or that you feel grateful for or whatever, and using those to continue to help build you up if you're having a bad day or if you feel like you can't do something that you really probably can, using this tool to help you build that confidence. It's good stuff. And pickleball, we're hearing so much about that. I love it. I haven't tried it yet myself, but my daughter has played. And so I'm like, all right, I've got to try this. But trying something new is good for us in so many ways, right? It's not just confidence boosting, but you learn new skills, you're challenging yourself in new ways. It's like you're exploring new stuff, and it's a wonderful thing. So I highly recommend trying new things and pushing yourself beyond boundaries that you thought you'd never go.
Yeah, absolutely. And think about it. When I go play pickleball, I'm probably going to meet at least three new people that I never would have met before because I wasn't playing pickleball before. And you never know where those relationships could go. We could become best of friends. They could help me with referring a client. I could help them with finding them somebody that may fit a position they have open. You never know. So it's another great way to network while you're having fun and really expanding your horizons.
Yeah, for sure. And you touched just briefly on imposter syndrome and what you were describing. And so let's talk about that a little bit, if you will. And what does it mean? And how do we begin to get over it, or realize that's just not true? Or I'm not even sure, do you discount it? Do you like disagree with yourself? How do you figure out how to get around this idea of I'm not good enough for a role, or whatever the case may be?
It's a great question. Honestly, most imposter syndrome comes from comparison,
Yeah.
comparing yourself to someone else. I worked with a client, her name's Susan, and one of the things she kept saying is, even if I could get a promotion and I wanted my boss's job, I could never do it the way she does. And the really interesting thing is, I was like, they would never expect you to do it the way she does. You're not her. They would expect you to do it the way Susan does because you're you and you bring a different skill set. And we all struggle with it a little bit. The social media world makes imposter syndrome so much more, I think, broad than it probably ever was before because people seem so eloquent. They seem so put together. I laugh. I'm like, somebody told me my background. Your background's so professional. I was like, that literally is just a background I made with a picture. I didn't want you to see my boring gray wall, right? Stop comparing it. I'm not more professional because I have a background photo. But it comes down with the imposter syndrome. It's the same journaling, the 50 things, and really just getting to the root of. I don't say you're just going to get through it or get over it. You're definitely going to slip some days. Somebody will say something and you'll think, ooh, is that something that's important? But we have to work through it, process it, and get the feeling moved aside as productively as possible so that it doesn't continue to bog you down. Imposter syndrome will keep you in place for a really long time. It will make it hard to make decisions. It will make you feel like you need yet another degree before you can get promoted. I've talked to women who are finishing up their MBAs. I've got one that's got her PhD almost done. I'm like, what is that? I just need this one more thing. And then I'm like, but you're already perfect. You just need to put yourself out there in the right ways. It makes such a difference.
Yeah. And the idea of I need one more degree or one more certificate, and then I'll be ready. And that's not going to be the thing. It's like, well, you're never going to be ready. You've just got to try. You've just got to get out there and go for it. And then that confidence comes from the doing, right? Not to say that you shouldn't get a
Exactly.
degree if it's important to
Agree.
you and you want to
Right.
get it as an accomplishment and achievement. Absolutely do that. But don't let it be an excuse for why you can't do something, right?
Yeah, absolutely. The one of the ladies that I was working with that completed her MBA did not get a promotion that she applied for afterward and was just beside herself. She's like, "I just got my MBA." And I said, while you were working so hard on your MBA, which congratulations, it's amazing. I don't have my MBA. I just don't have the focus. What's a big deal? I said, but
Yeah.
while you were working on that, what were you doing to maintain your visibility? What conversations were you having with leaders about your goals and your expertise? She said, oh gosh, I was so focused. And I said, I know that's what happens. We get so focused. And the reality is, the women I work with are generally people leaders. So, again, manager, director, vice president. leadership is not a technical skill. You can take leadership theory classes all day long. And when you get in the real world, not one of those scenarios is going to happen. It's a fun fact. People are still people. It's going to throw you for a loop. So it comes from experience. And if you can't get experience in a job title, but you want to move to leadership, then get visible through an employee resource group, get visible by getting on the board of a nonprofit. Find another way to start getting those skills and building those muscles so that you are able to demonstrate your readiness and that you're maintaining that visibility and making sure people are aware of your goals and where you're headed.
Yeah, great point. I so have enjoyed our conversation, and really, we could keep talking because there's so much more that we could discuss in this realm. And actually, before I even begin to do the closeout of this show, I want to talk a little bit about mentorship and how mentorship and networking kind of work together to help you to build that confidence and build those leadership skills. And so, what do you want to share on your thoughts on that?
Such a good question. So, both are important. Networking is definitely building your brand and getting more visible and making more people aware of who you are and how you can support each other. The mentor is the person who's a little bit ahead of you. So sometimes you'll have a mentor at work who maybe you're a manager, she's a director. She's able to give you some feedback and perspective from a different viewpoint than your boss could. And they're really great at helping you maybe understand what's going sideways within an industry or within the company because they've been there and they've experienced some of those same things. From a coaching aspect, there's so many coaches and they all do different things. Some are very much about mindset and working through that side of things. I'm very much about strategy. I'm going to teach you how we move forward from some feedback maybe you were given. I'm going to give you some ideas and ways that you can work with your internal mentor to make the relationship even more advantageous. So, feed forward is one of my favorite tips when you're trying to get better at something. Talking to a couple of mentors about how did you learn how to do this? Or I'm working on this. What recommendations do you have? Or what steps did you follow? So, I like to call it the team. So, you've got your mentors, who are the people that are a step or so ahead of you that can give you some really great perspective and feedback. You've got your sponsors, which are your higher level leaders at a company who can help bring your name into rooms. So when a promotion opportunity is coming about and there's conversations, I've been in those rooms where names have come up and I've been the one to witness the expression when nobody knew who that person was versus when multiple people knew who that person was and could really champion and bring forward that person's brand. And then coaches generally paid outside of the company. My program, again, it's very strategic. It's very much about giving you the tools and resources so you can implement as you go, which means that your growth is noticeable. Usually by week 2 or 3, I'm getting feedback that, oh, my boss said they noticed blah, 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 or my team said this. So that's the well-rounded team of people that you should have.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you for explaining that to us because I think you're right. It does take that a little bit of a group effort, right? You've got the people who are ahead of you that can tell you maybe where some pitfalls might be or how they handled things, like you said, and the coach and all of that. It's the winning team. It's like you've got
Yeah.
everybody that's there together helping you to grow and move forward. So I love that idea of having all of those people on your support staff, kind of good stuff. Len, let's at this point have you share with us specifically about your coaching program. And you did just touch on it a little bit, but let's go a little deeper and have you share what you're working with your clients on specifically. Is there like everybody gets the same kind of strategic plan, or is it moldable depending on what the person specifically needs?
So, yes, it's both. So, I do have one on one coaching, which is very specific based on the client's needs. In that program, I'd say the majority of clients, the commonalities are confidence and imposter syndrome, a lot of calendar management, a lot of needing to get more clear on their goals and how to achieve them. and then working through a variety of strategies to really help them become more impactful leaders and prepare for that next level. In the group coaching program, that one is a little bit more specific, definitely still personalized because there are open coaching calls. I've recently changed it. So it's the Empower Her group coaching program. We have 16 sessions of content. We have implementation weeks. So you're demonstrating your growth as you go. And we're covering everything from setting SMART goals into calendar management, into specific leadership strategy, all the way through preparing to interview and tell your story when that promotion posts. And though there are 16 sessions of content, I've just changed it. So we keep our members in for up to a year. So that if you finish the program, let's say in July, and your dream job posts in November, you still have access to me, the group, and all of the content. So that one is an open enrollment. We onboard the first week of each month. So our next group starts June 3rd. And if anyone wants to learn more about that, they're absolutely welcome to reach out and learn a little bit more.
Okay, that sounds great. And I'll include the information in the show notes. So your episode should be airing early June. So then I'm assuming the beginning of July, you'll have another session beginning. And so approximately when would that be?
It would be the first week of July. So I'm working on dates around the holidays, but we'll definitely set a very clear onboarding date. So that very first week.
Okay, excellent.
Great question. Thank you.
Yeah, for sure. I want to make sure that people who are needing this very specific assistance in helping to grow their career have access to it because, I mean, you know your stuff. And I absolutely want people to be able to take advantage of that. So, Tabitha, tell us. I always love to ask my guests if there's books that they have read that have been beneficial or influential, or if there's podcasts that they're listening to that they enjoy that they want to share. I'd love to have you do that now.
Right. I will tell you, I love to read suspense books. So I'll talk about my favorite book that applies to coaching, which is called Brave Not Perfect. It is by Reshma Salani. I think it's the way you pronounce her last name. It is such a great book as it compares how women are raised to be perfect and men are raised to be brave. And it starts at a young age in the playground where a little boy jumps off the top of the jungle gym and scuffs his knees and gets dirty and he's applauded. But if a little girl does it, it's like, oh no, let's look at you, let's clean you up. Right. You don't want to do that. So it's really a great story. I recommend it actually on the audio version. She's narrated it in her own voice. So it's such a great story. I definitely recommend that to clients a lot. As far as podcasts, oh my gosh, I'm listening to so many right now. I'm loving Bright Side of 50 by Carla Palmer. She hits on some definitely great midlife topics that some of us Gen X ladies are managing. So it's a little bit fun, kind of light. Tech Champagne by Elisa Purdy, which is great for entrepreneurs that are working on getting a little more in the automation space. And My Good Woman by Dawn Andrews. She's also a leadership professional, but helps a lot of women transition from the corporate world into the coaching world. So those are a couple that I listen to all the time. And oh my gosh, if I had listed all of them, we'd be here all day. They rotate in my morning routine.
Oh, yeah. Those are great recommendations for sure, Tabitha. Thank you so much for sharing them. I'm going to include that in the show notes. The book as well sounds fantastic. Brave, Not Perfect.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah, good stuff. I love the sound of that. So I'm going to pick that up, but I'll include it in the show notes as well as the podcasts that you've recommended, new ones I have never heard before. So I will for sure put that so the listeners can easily find it. And so lastly, Tabitha, would you please share with us if people want to reach out to you, find out more about what you're doing, join in the coaching program, how would people be able to find you?
So there's a couple of simple ways. I'm on LinkedIn more than anywhere. So you can connect with me. I'm Tabatha Jones. It's Tabatha. I always say the Tabitha with all A's. I spell it the right way. And then also my website is tabathajones.com, which I think we can pop into the show notes too, if that's okay. But both of those ways, you're able to connect through messaging or through booking a call, and we can chat about your specific needs. So would love to connect there.
Perfect. That sounds amazing. I will absolutely include all that information in the show notes as well for the listeners to find. So thank you again, Tabitha. This has been fantastic and really great information. I think you have put so many of these points in a new and refreshing way to change your mindset about how you're thinking about these things. And the points that you made about writing down the things you've accomplished, keeping that score, if you will, I think is so great. So, what great advice. And I've absolutely enjoyed our conversation. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me, Desiree. This has been great. Thanks.
Awesome. We'll talk more soon.
Okay.
Thank you, dear listeners, for tuning in to another insightful episode of the Pockets of Knowledge podcast. We appreciate your time and curiosity as we explore fascinating topics together. If you enjoyed today's discussion, be sure to join us next week for another amazing episode. Remember, your journey of learning and growth is a continuous adventure, and we're thrilled to be part of it. Don't forget to subscribe so you never miss an episode. Until next week, stay curious and keep exploring those pockets of knowledge.